Today in Algebra we're going to deal with piecewise graphing, which is very different kind of graphing than we've ever had before. And it's really where we're going to take pieces of a graph and put 3 or 2 different pieces together from different graphs into one. So let's take a look at this. First of all, what's kind of new here is this part. And so I just want to make some lines so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. And I'm going to actually use my highlighter. This one says x is less than or equal to -2. So x and -2 will be right here. So I want you to just imagine that there's a boundary here. And actually, you know what? Let me do that with a thinner one so it's easier for you to see. When I'm done, I'm actually going to take these out. And the other one is +2. Okay, now I can refer to these as the turning points. This is where they turn from one graph into another. So really we're going to graph each of these lines, and then this is going to be kind of part 1. This part in between will be part 2, and this will be part 3. So part 1 says they want to have x plus 5 as our equation. So this means that for this part 1, we're going to have y equals x plus 5. So if I start out with 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then my slope is 1. So that means it's up 1 and over 1. So if I make this line, it looks like this. Now, in order to connect these, which we're going to do, I can only go up to this line. So it can only be in part 1. That means that anything that happened past this, we're going to have to erase. So now we have this part 1 of the graph. Now to do part 2. Part 2 is this equation. So actually let me mark it with a number 2. So number 2 is y equals -2x minus 1. So that means I start down here. Let me choose a different color just so it's easier for you to see. At -1. And that -2 means that my slope is -2 over 1. So I go down 2 over 1. Now it can only be in part 2 of the graph. So when I change lines here, I'm going to change color so it's easier for you to see. There's my part 2. Now I'm going to change colors again just so that it's easier for you to see. Now I'm going to do part 3, which would be over here. And that's y equals 2x minus 9. So that means that it starts down here. Oops. That means it starts down here on 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I go down to my y-axis, I want to find where it's 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. So there's my spot. Now my slope is 2 over 1, which means it goes up 2 over 1. Now the thing is, when I make this one, because it's only supposed to be in part 3, hang on, I'm going to make my line. I'll make it in green just so you can see it. I can only do the ones that are here, which means I have to get rid of anything here. So this is an example of piecewise. So it's this graph, and then this one, and then this one. If you look at this, this kind of reminds me of like a stock market graph, where it's on some path until it gets to a certain date and then it starts to go down. And then it goes to another date, it starts to go back up. So breaking them into pieces is going to be what helps us. Now there's also, now this graph is a little bit different. This is actually called a step function. And really these are different kinds of brackets. This is y equals x and then this. So first of all, I want to talk about this because it looks like steps when you make it. So if I start out here at 0, 0, there's going to be a closed dot. And then I'm going to make a line till it's open here. So that would be like saying all the time that I have change in my pocket from, 0 all the way to 99 cents, it's going to be less than $1. Once I get that final dollar, I'm going to go up to my dollar, which is 1. Then I continue to collect change until I get to this spot right here, which would be 2. Then I go up to 2. So this is kind of an open-ended graph on one end. So it's closed and then open at this end. Now you could see how we could continue this graph. And I could also continue it down at this end. And if you look, it looks like a bunch of stairs. My last one. Now most of the ones that we're going to look at in this section are going to look like this first one.